Hey, welcome to another episode of GeekOutdoors.com. Today I want to talk about the whole concept of the app stores and whether or not you even use it anymore. And what I mean by that is, a lot of times when we actually use our phones, we have certain apps that we use on a regular basis. However, how many of those do you really need, and how many of it do you actually use? Now, before I begin, I want to go back to brief history about how this whole concept of an app store came about. Now, if you really had to go back to the beginnings of where this whole concept came about, I would really argue that it really came from the Linux operating system. Because how Linux works is it works with a centralized software center, okay? And then there are software repositories there, and then it's managed by basically the community that creates a version of Linux that you're using, and that's where you get all your software. And so all the software, not only is the versioning of the software managed there, but also the security and so forth, it's all managed in that one center. Now that seems very familiar to the whole concept of an app store on your mobile phones. And it really wasn't until Apple came along with their iPhone that this whole concept became really popular to the mainstream and the masses. And obviously we have app stores on our Android phones and also on our Windows phones as well. And so that is how the whole idea of the app store came about. And obviously that whole concept is now pretty much becoming the norm. Like, even if you are playing video games nowadays, you definitely will go to a centralized software center and you'll download it, whether that is the PlayStation Network or whether that's the Xbox store, or whether that's Steam OS. That whole concept of an application store, an application source, is all the same. Now, obviously, if you look back in previous history, the way we installed software before was we had a physical medium, whether that would be diskette, whether that would be a CD-ROM, a cartridge, whatever the case might be, your software would be in a physical medium. And nowadays, we have a lot more, I would say, conveniences when it comes to software, but there's also some drawbacks as well. So, going back to the whole concept of the application stores, whenever the whole concept of an app store became really popular and I got my first smartphone, which was an Android phone, I downloaded maybe like 30 to 40 applications, okay? And then over time, as this whole process matured, I really only use about 5 apps on a regular basis. And I would definitely consider my Chrome browser, or your internet browser on your phone, whether that would be Safari, Chrome, Firefox, whatever, that is definitely an application. And obviously, other applications that I use on a regular basis are YouTube, my video editing programs, and so forth. So usually it's about 5 apps that I use regularly. Now, I think for a lot of people, they are also basically doing the same things. Most people don't use 10 to 20 apps all the time. And the majority of apps that they're using are usually social media apps or media consumption apps, besides their browser, of course. So with all of that, let's talk about some of the, positives of this new application model, and also some of the negatives, and also where, I really feel like the whole industry is going. So obviously with this model where you are downloading your software, some of the positives are definitely the fact that it is more convenient, in the sense that you no longer have to go to a physical store and buy the physical medium, okay? And the second thing is durability, okay? Now, if you have a physical medium, whether, like I said, CD, DVD, whatever the case might be, over time, physically, it's just gonna get damaged, it's gonna wear down. So that is another case. And then also, security, okay? Now, if you are downloading from a software center, instead of going to, before you would go to a website to download a program, okay? But if you go to a software center, usually the security is going to be better because it's managed by a centralized software center, okay? So your versioning, your security, that's another thing. And then I just mentioned is the versioning control, okay? So whenever you do have all your software in one place, it's a lot easier for you to control the version of your software. Whereas if it is a physical medium, you're still going to have to get the older version when you get on a physical medium, and then obviously you will update your software over time. However, if it's all in one centralized place, you could be pretty much assured that people are going to get the most recent version of the software. Those are the primary advantages that I see. I would say pricing would be an advantage, but a lot of our software, especially for video games, they really haven't gone down significantly, even though the whole physical medium is really not there anymore, and also the distribution is not required anymore. So that's a different area. Now let's quickly look at some of the negatives. So the first negative I could see is the fact that a lot of these application stores, they are on the internet. Actually, all of them are. So if you are in a country that does not have access to the internet, then you can't download the software. So that is the first problem. And obviously there's going to be newer technologies, which I'll talk about, that's going to help that. And then the second thing is the fact that a lot of the convenience that comes in with downloading from the software stores, that's if you have a really good internet connection, and that's if the programs are actually small enough for you to download quickly, such as on your mobile phones. However, even with your mobile phones now, the software is getting a lot larger, specifically with video games. Anybody who's ever had to download a game from the PlayStation, Xbox, and Steam, they'll know that these files are large. It's not uncommon for you to download a whole game and it'd be 30 to 40 to 50 gigs, and then additional files which would be 7, 10 gigs. So that's a lot of space to download, a lot of bandwidth that it takes. So it could take you days in some cases to download one particular application. This really applies to video games right now, but video games are applications. And so that's another thing. And then something else that I don't think we think about as much is the fact that whenever you do have an applications center where it's controlled by basically one big entity or just a few communities, then they have a lot of control over the applications, because things such as like DRM on the software. So when you're downloading something, the provider can at any moment revoke your usage or control and limit the amount of usage that you have. This has happened before with the Amazon stores, where people's accounts were banned for some reason, and then they basically withdrew access to any of the software that they had already purchased. So that is not a good thing. And also I'm thinking about privacy as well. So as more and more people download software from these software centers, a lot of these companies have more access to the usage, the data, and so forth. Even though there are quote-unquote privacy rules in place, you agree to a lot of this when you sign the agreement to use their software store. So those are just some of the things that I thought about, some of the positives and the negatives. I mean, overall, the positives definitely outweigh the negatives. Now, in terms of where I think we're going in the future, let's look at the whole concept of the Google Chrome browser, or more to the point, the Google Chrome OS, because I really think that's where the future's going to be. So with the current application model, the App Store model, it's still the case where you still have to download the software and download it on your device, okay? So that's still very similar to the old physical way of doing things. However, Google, with their Chrome OS, is actually going towards something that is really going to be the future, meaning all your applications are actually not on your machine. They're actually on their servers. It's in the quote-unquote cloud. And so with that, it brings a whole different set of, challenges and also positives as well. Some of the big positives is what I said earlier about security, versioning control. Now, if everything is on the web, then you never really have to worry about the version of the software you're going to get, and especially the security with it, because the applications provider can upload it and upload a new version and have the latest security patches at any time, because it is not on your machine, it's on the web. And I know that you could run some software locally, but in general, everything is on their servers and it's not on your machine. So that's the first thing. And then also, because internet speeds are getting better, with such services as the Google hot air balloons and also the Facebook airplanes that are actually transmitting Wi-Fi to really remote areas, that would mean that more and more countries, more and more people can actually use everything, all their applications over the web. Okay, and so that's another thing. And if all your applications are going to be web apps, that would mean that the platform that you're on, whether it's Windows, Mac, Linux, it doesn't matter. All you would really need is a browser And that's why I really feel the Google with their Chrome OS was really a future thinking, okay? And so I really think more and more companies are gonna adopt this model, okay? And some of the disadvantages I see to this are the same reasons that I had mentioned earlier with the app stores and also with the internet connections having access to it. But once that internet connection or internet service is taken down in terms of access to more people around the world, I think we'll definitely have a world where the operating system that you use will not really matter anymore. It'll just basically be through a single browser application or just a few browser applications. So that's where I think everything's heading. And as you can see, if you do web development, you see a lot of the web technologies. They could really do a lot of powerful things nowadays. Everything through the browser. And so, you know, all these future web technologies are going to be providing the type of experience that people are used to on a on a normal operating system installed on your desktop or your laptop or your mobile device. So that's where I think we're heading. And so is it a good thing or a bad thing? I think, there's, like I said, I think there's positives and negatives to both. I do really miss, the physical medium, specifically for video games. I miss having a cartridge or a CD or DVD and I could just, plug it in my system and it works. I don't like the whole concept of downloading everything all the time. But it is really, really convenient. So that's pretty much my thoughts today, my ramblings on the whole app stores and the whole concept of it and kind of where I think that we're heading. So if you had any ideas on the app stores, application stores, be sure to leave them in the comments area below. And if you did like these videos, you got a lot of value out of it, be sure to subscribe. And don't forget, I am on Snapchat at Geek Outdoors. See you in another episode. Thanks for checking out this episode. And as always, if you like these videos, be sure to click on the subscribe button. And for full written content, audio content, and additional geek stuff, head over to geekoutdoors.com. And I'll see you outdoors on the very next episode.